Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for coming this evening to spend a little time with us to talk about the fiscal year 21-22 financial plan for Sun City West. As you well know, as residents here, this is Arizona's premier active adult golf community. We are very, very proud of that. And I'm not sure if you're aware or not, but recently Consumer Affairs is a non-governmental agency that does various types of research for consumer needs throughout the United States. And they reported recently that Coventry Direct, which is specializing in a life insurance company, did some analysis of over 2,600 communities, 55 and over people, assigning numerical values and affordability and amenities and security features, and came out with a score for these communities and ranked them nationally. And the top retirement communities came out in a report that looks a little bit like this. The Villages in Florida, which I'm pretty sure you've heard of, ranked number 1. But there's a community in Arizona, 11,000 acres, known as Sun City West, that came in second place nationally. And we are very, very proud of that. Before I go too much further, there's going to be a couple of people joining me here at the podium to go over some of the things we're going to talk about this evening. But Mr. Russ Boston, if you would please stand up, please, and Mr. Todd Patty. Russ oversees all of our facility maintenance, all the amenities that we have here, and takes care of all of the things that we have to play with here in Sun City West. Todd oversees all of the environmental management portions of the program. So from the flowers at all of our entrances to all of our landscaping needs to the 7 magical golf courses that we have here, these two gentlemen have institutional knowledge of over 60 years here within Sun City West, 30 years apiece. And that is huge. And to get the rankings that we did on a national level by an independent observer, a lot of credit goes out to these two individuals, the governing board that supports these folks, and all of the staff that work underneath them. So my thanks to you all, and Todd will be speaking a little later when we talk a little bit about golf. But when it comes to the amenities, George and I continue, President Kuchek and I, continue to have observations and comments and whatnot that we deal with. And when it comes to the amenities within Sun City West, within this study, we scored perfectly. And that is a testament, again, to these two gentlemen and all the staff here working. So when folks came in and looked at what we have to offer here, one of the comments that I'd like to talk about is a comment that they made that says during their analysis, they uncovered a vibrant, high-quality community teeming with kinds of amenities that make life after 55 a dream. And they're not kidding. This is absolutely a wonderful place to be, and I'm honored to be here myself as an employee, and absolutely wondered to work with these kinds of people that I'm surrounded with on a daily basis. But as the community as a whole, Sun City West is an absolute jewel. So moving on, as we talk about our financial plan for the upcoming year, right? We support the intentions of the governing board. That's staff's role, right? We work out the procedures and how things get done, and the governing board sets policy, and we adhere to those and make sure things get taken care of. So we preserve and protect and maintain and enhance the assets of the association, over $150 million worth of those. We balance the current operational long-term asset replacement needs. We look at our reserve funding requirements and how we sit currently and financially. And we provide funding for investments for all new capital projects. Go ahead, Katie. So Del Webb Retirement Community Standards, with the current programs and activities going on, we pay particular attention to, right? And we're proud this year to talk about this budget with the fact that we're not increasing any fees when it comes to owner member dues, right? Management was challenged to decrease our operation expenses by 3% compared to a budget that typically is based on some historical trends. Over the past 25 years, you'll see what that's looked like. And over the last 4 or 5 years, we've been very modest within our increases. But this year, due to a lot of trends and activities with a virus that we knew nothing about a year ago, has really had an effect on us. And we want to make sure that the owner members remain safe, and we want to make sure that you're treated fairly. And I think with this budget, without a fee increase, I think we've accomplished that. Oftentimes, when people talk about the recreation dues, we hear that a lot, and they're really not. Really, they're annual member dues and fees. If you can go back one, please. When you buy into Sun City West, there are state mandates that require that these annual dues be paid. We get phone calls and people telling us that because a couple of their favorite recreation centers are closed, that they're going to hold off and not pay the annual fees this year because the facilities are closed. It really doesn't work that way, right? We have state mandates. We have obligations to fulfill regardless if a facility is open or a facility is closed. We do our best to do our heavy maintenance during our low times of year when participation numbers are down a bit, and we take advantage, and so the owners can take advantage of a full season when the weather is brilliant and our outside activities really increase. But we have responsibilities, from wages and benefits to all the IT things that are out there now with our web pages and how people can contact us, pay their fees online. All of the maintenance responsibilities that we have, our utility bills don't really go away when there's no members using these facilities. Our properties, our wonderful golf courses, the programs that we offer, those all run year round. And so your operational dues, your owner member dues offset those costs. And essentially what we're looking at really, if we break that down, it's about $1.35 a day for each individual resident to live here and have access to the $150 million of assets that we have. So budget assumptions, right? This jumped up on us last year when we were talking about a COVID virus. We have to put a budget together. We have to understand how this virus affects us, both in revenues and expenses. And what we've experienced over the last year, we have to carry forward and make some assumptions moving forward. We hope this goes away sooner than later. But as we sit, we have obligations and responsibilities. So one of the things that coincided with the virus is the state of Arizona has implemented an increase to minimum wage. Over half of our employment staff are actual owner members. People that live here, work here, and they work for us, and they do very, very well. But their hourly rate is being increased and mandated by the state of Arizona. Additionally, we have employees and we have performance wage increases that range from 0 to 3% on an annual basis based on performance. And we've also experienced some increases in our health coverage. Last year, within our program of the calendar year 2021, we have been faced with a 10% increase in our healthcare costs. And it's projected to increase by 7% for the year 2022. Again, owner member dues, we're proposing no changes. A slight change to the guest fee program that we have will increase from a $3.50 daily fee for a guest of an accompanied member to $5, and guests under 18 years old will remain at the $3.50 level. We are proposing an asset preservation fee for newcomers into Sun City West. Right now, there's a buy-in fee for the privilege of being here and using all of our assets of $3,500, and we're proposing an increase of $200 to that fee. And we're budgeting a volume of about 1,200 home sales being taken place over the next fiscal year. As far as budgeting for golf rounds, we are looking at a little bit of an increase and budgeting about 287,000 rounds of golf compared to 281 a year ago. Again, with COVID, we're seeing a bit of an increase due to the fact that golf is a playable activity, a lot of distancing, sport played outside, a lot of open space, exactly what the medical folks are telling you to do. So we're hoping that the rate numbers that we're seeing as far as those being increases, we hope we'll retain those. But if COVID then goes away, do people also find other things to do? We hope not. We hope they continue to play golf here. So again, no proposed fees in the golf rounds or the golf cart fees, but a $2 increase in golf cart rentals, which is primarily outside users coming in to use our facilities, and that goes to offset the rates of replacing golf carts in years to come. Again, bowling rates, no changes, as well as facility rentals as well. So when we talk about revenue and related impact, COVID had a big hit on us. We experienced that in all aspects of our operation: membership, golf, guests, bowling, and special events. Pete Finelli, our CFO, will get into a little bit more depth and detail about that subject as we move forward. But again, the big ticket on this item in this presentation is a 0% increase in owner member dues due to COVID restrictions, facility closures, and a low inflation projection, right? A few increases down the road here regarding guest fees. And moving on, we just want to take a peek. Again, the #2 ranking in the United States for the facility that we have here, we still rank very, very low when it comes to comparables on annual dues. So these are about 20 Sun City type developments, or Sun City, yeah, exactly, Del Webb type communities throughout the United States, and where they sit as far as their annual dues go, ranging as high as $3,300 a year down to what we project here remaining at the $497 rate for individuals. So when it comes to golf, again, no fee increases. The fees were adjusted last year prior to COVID, so we really haven't seen an entire year of activity to see how our fee increases last year have really adjusted. Again, we're grateful for an increase in place, and I hope we can maintain that level. Again, the $2 increase in carts will help with new acquisition and the replacement program. And when it comes to other activities that we have recreationally and within the sports pavilion, I think with the lifting of some of the requirements and mandates at the state level as far as health goes, we're starting to see those levels of play and those activities like dances and activities, special events, pop-up sales when it comes to products and what's being made at our clubs, as well as the lineage being bowled at our sports pavilion. Those are all increasing as some of the mandates with COVID get a little bit more relaxed. So status quo on our rate structure when it comes to renting our facilities, and we really hope to be back to what was ever normal beginning in the fall of 21. So a brief overview or a picture of how we kind of fund ourselves here. And by and large, you're going to see that the vast, vast majority of our revenue is the green chunk of this circle, and that is membership dues. That really floats the boat here, but considerably, the large blue section on the left hand of that circle is our golf revenue. It does very, very well for us, and we're very proud to have the amount of golf that we do have. And when people talk about their recreation fees or their recreation dues and whatnot, that little sliver between golf and our membership dues is the revenue that we generate via recreation. So it's kind of a bit of a misnomer when people make comment about, hey, my rec dues are coming up due, or why am I paying my rec dues? These are owner member dues, and we have an educational program out there with the development of this brochure that we try to give people as new ones come in and register for the first time, or if people do complain, this is available online, but it really goes to depict all of the things that we do with the revenues that we bring in based on your membership dues. And this is a very usable document. So there's a brief summary of our revenue. When it comes to our expenses, again, the big circle and the aqua colored thing to take up about 3/4 of that circle really are our payroll taxes and benefits, as well as our salaries. So we are a people-oriented organization focusing on customer service to the owner members that live here. The vast majority of expenses that really come out of our office really are dealing with people. The kind of the orange shaded product there is all of the repair and maintenance work that goes on to keep these facilities looking as wonderfully as they do. And then the yellow chunk really kind of shows what our utilities are as far as that goes. Now, as the temperatures heat up, In our summertime, I know you all face electric bills like everyone else in the state of Arizona. And I cannot remember from yesterday, Russ, how many air conditioners do you have? 240. There's a few air conditioning bills that we have to pay as well. So it's quite sizable. So what we took advantage of this year was our ability to talk with our staff and really kind of hone down our operational expenses. And again, the vast majority of what we do are people. So there really isn't a whole heck of a lot to deal with because of, fixed utility costs and those types of things that we face. But we did manage to cut back about 3% of our annual spending. We froze our wages for our employees for the first 6 months of the upcoming fiscal year. We're looking at, again, an increase relative to minimum wage, up to a 3% increase for staff based on merit. And then we took a real hard look at our full-time positions and assessments, vacant positions, and can we hold off and perhaps not fill those and kind of get by and adjust job descriptions accordingly and kind of pick up the loss there. So I think we're in good shape. I think the inflation factor on capital, that's something we're just going to have to deal with. And I think, as you probably know and have heard recently in the news, there are several things when it comes to equipment and construction and those types of things. It's tough. Trying to find steel, trying to find wood product now for capital improvement projects. I think Karl's running up against a little bit of a wall currently that we'll be talking about as we move forward and present to our governing board some of the bidding process and projects that we have upcoming with the capital improvement side, that we're seeing a little bit of an increase when it comes to these types of things. But we'll get through it. So when it comes to the capital improvement impact, obviously we have capital needs. The asset preservation fee goes a very long way in helping us get down that path, as well as our interest and our dividends that we bring in and the depreciation that we see. So we are proposing a $200 increase to the APF fee. That should generate us just about a little over $250,000 to add to our capital improvement budget to continue to maintain the facilities and grow as far as repair and maintenance and new products and projects that we can provide. And this is a little bit of a picture that shows the increase in sales that we're having as far as homes within the walls of Sun City West. Focusing on the blue columns to the right. Oh, I'm sorry. Focusing on the blue columns on the right, you'll see that fiscal year 21 is big. And it continues for the last 3 years anyway. Every month seems to outdo the month for the previous year. That's pretty positive. Homes here are pretty hot. The real estate market's pretty hot. Things are not staying on the market very long at all. And that's good for us. And it's good for the growth of this community. So when it comes to property management, recently we implemented a new program that helps us identify transactions that take place that somehow and in the past have slipped through the cracks. This is a real estate data solution, has a nickname of REDS, but our membership team has been able to now track a little bit more closely some transactions that take place, some changes in deeds and those types of things. And we've been able to capture close to $400,000 of money that in the past has been kind of fallen through the cracks. So this is a big advantage to us. We're very proud that we're putting this program together. And over the last, I think it's only been in place for about 5 months, but we've done a very good job of tracking some revenue that we are definitely entitled to and is now coming our way. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the income statement. At this point, Mr. Finelli, I think if you want to join in the program. Pete is our CFO. Is the next slide? Is this where we jump to capital? We did last time. Let's stay in the same order that we did. Let me introduce Todd Patty. Todd, you want to come up and at least talk about where we're going as far as the upcoming capital year when it comes to golf? I'm sorry, Pete. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Bill, and good evening. Tonight, I'm just going to take a few minutes to review our proposed capital expenditures for this upcoming budget. First one we have is the Shoreline Project or Hardscape over at the Trail Ridge Golf Course on number 14 for $296,000. And then we have a Grandview Irrigation and Turf Reduction Project, Phase 1, which would include installing road crossing main lines and a new pump station. Phase 2 is scheduled to start in the spring of 2023. And I have a timeline here in just a minute that I'll walk you through. And then cart path repair or slurry seal at Trail Ridge and Stardust during the summer closures. All right, our shoreline project. Purpose of this, the project is to reclaim the original shoreline. We've lost a lot of ground over there, as we have on some of our other lakes on the golf courses due to erosion. We're going to install 400 linear feet of split face block wall, similar to what we did over last summer on number 18 at Pebblebrook, and then on the 17 the year before, 17 Green at Trail Ridge. We're going to do both the upper and lower lake, the two lakes on number 14 at Trail Ridge. We're also looking at installing some rock. It's called riprap around the desert side of both lakes to match up to the block wall. And then we'll come in and backfill and resod. We'll soften that slope a little bit, push the lake out a little bit, 10, 12 feet to reclaim the original shoreline. And then the course is scheduled to close on Monday, July 5th, and reopen after the fall overseeding, October 19th. And then our Grandview Irrigation and Turf Reduction Project for $865,000, Phase 1, which includes the irrigation design, turf conversion design. Right now we're looking at about 20 acres of turf that we would remove and replace with desert landscape. Irrigation mainline road crossings, we have 9 of those over there at Grandview. Pump station installation, it would include the required Maricopa County permits for the project, and it also includes an allowance to submit documents on behalf of Sun City West for the Arizona Water Protection Fund grants. So some of that money that we get from the grant program, we could put back into the project. All right, here's the timeline we put together for the project starting this year, July of 2021. We would budget for design and installation of road crossing main lines. And then August, we'd select an architect and complete the property survey. In November, we'd go through the bidding process, and then we'd do the work May and June of 2022. And then July, with that budget in 2022, we would budget for the irrigation and turf reduction project Phase 2. That would be the main project of the installation of the irrigation system and desert conversion. We would do the bidding process again in November, and then we'd start the project in 2023 in April, and we'd be closed over there all the way through the fall overseeding. We're looking at a completion date, give or take a few weeks, of about August 6th is what we're looking at. All right, cart path maintenance or slurry seal at Trail Ridge during the closure this summer for $60,000. And the same thing at Stardust, same procedure over at Stardust during the summer closure. And then our golf maintenance equipment replacement program for $1.6 million. That list includes mowers, tractors, aeration and top dressing equipment, which we are using today over at Trail Ridge. We started our spring aerification today. Greens rollers, bunker rakes, fertigation systems, and the pump stations. Those put liquid fertilizer out through the irrigation system at night during our run. Utility vehicles and trailers and some pickup trucks are included in that list. This is just a breakout of everything per golf course, how many units. It usually ranges anywhere from 5 to 10 units, depending on which golf course. And then you can see the dollar amount off to the right-hand side there. So we have 52 units scheduled for replacement this year, average of about a little over 7 units per golf course. And the average age of the equipment that we're replacing this year is 15.5 years old. And the last one is in golf operations. We have 20 golf carts, rental carts scheduled for replacement this year. Current inventory average age is about 10 years on those carts, and it does reduce repairs and downtime of those units. I'll turn it back over to Bill. Thank you.
Todd.
Thank you.
Again, Todd and his staff do a miraculous job taking care of the 7 golf courses that we have. They are in such great shape. Day in and day out, they do a masterful job, as does the gentleman behind and this is Karl Wilhelm. He's our project manager, oversees all of the repair and maintenance projects and activities that go on, as well as all of our new construction. And Karl's going to chat a little bit about what we've got planned for the upcoming year.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you're doing well. I'd like to share with you this evening the repair and replacement and new capital schedule being proposed in the FY 21-22 budget. We'll start off talking about recreation HVAC, the recreation center's HVAC units. In this next fiscal year, we propose to replace 9 HVAC units, 3 at Pebblebrook, 5 at Beardsley, and 1 at R.H. Johnson. You see the average install dates are between 2002 and 2004. So due to our excellent maintenance from our facilities department, these units get a long life. We'll move over to the Kuntz parking lots, 1 and 2, asphalt mill and resurface for $380,000. This will be the removal of 157,000 square foot of the original asphalt. We'll regrade and stabilize those soils and replace with 3-inch new asphalt. It would have been really nice to accomplish this project during all of the closures for the additions and parking lot, but viewing all of the construction traffic that took place, it just didn't make sense to eat that new parking lot up, and it was best served to wait till this next fiscal year. Including with that project, we're proposing to do a parking lot walkway and lighting replacement, $150,000. This replaces the parking lot poles, heads, and walkway fixtures that you see along the concrete walkways. We install new energy conserving LED fixtures when we do this. This completes the outdoor energy conservation program for all 4 recreation centers. To give you an idea what this looks like, if you were currently visiting over at Palm Ridge, you'll see the lighting being replaced over there today and should be complete in a couple of weeks. R.H. Johnson, cardio, treadmills, and cross trainers. We have equipment that has met its useful life and reduces frequency of repairs. $89,799 for these units to be replaced. Beardsley Greenhouse, replacement and expansion. Kind of a unique project here. This is partial repair and replacement and new capital. Originally, the rec center's built a 380 square foot greenhouse in the garden club's area, and it can no longer be repaired. The club has asked for repairs for multiple years now, and it's just to that point where it does need replacement. At the same time that we expressed to the club that we were replacing their greenhouse, they were very happy, but they did come back to us with a plan and ask for an additional expanded greenhouse. They have presented their facts and their club growth and their needs to all of the committees and the governing board, and we propose to build an expanded 960 square foot greenhouse. It's been a lot of work to get to the point to understand how to put this budget together for this project. I've talked to multiple greenhouse manufacturers. Not very many service the southwest area of the country, and the few that do, they were very helpful and very fortunate that Sun City has gone before us and actually built one in the last year. If you were to travel over to Grand and 103rd Avenue, you'll see that their new facility over there has this greenhouse that we're proposing to build. Theirs is a little larger. Ours is proposed to be a little bit smaller by about 20 foot. But in the picture to the right, you will see exactly what we are proposing to provide the garden club. Beardsley, aquatics lobby enclosure. It has been requested to enclose the lobby, very similar to the R.H. Johnson Swim and Fitness lobby. We propose to seal in the arches with windows, the entry arch with a door, drywalled walls, drop ceiling, and an air-conditioned space. Here's a proposed layout of that space. You'll see the comfortable furniture, a monitor station outside of the existing. This will allow our membership to come, congregate, hang out for a little while they're getting ready to do their recreation things at the pool or in the fitness room. and then after they're complete, wait for their rides comfortably and avoid the Arizona heat. Beardsley pool area lighting improvement. There was a handful of projects this year that are on this capital budget request that were proposed by the Properties Committee as they did their tours of all the rec centers. They said, hey, can we please address the dark lighting that's in the pool area? It has been brought up in my tenure here multiple times. We proposed for $120,000 to invite Musco Lighting to provide a preliminary photometric survey and demonstrate the display of the lighting prior to making any investment in this project. Their picture provided in the far right is very similar to the pool area that we have, and they believe that this is the level of lighting that they'll be able to provide us for that capital request. Properties Committee also asked, can we improve the pool and spa areas wall and decor improvements? They understood the request for the enclosure of the lobby, the upgrade in lighting, and said, hey, can we get a design solution to paint colors and on the walls and the wall wainscoting? The project concurrent to the end of pool carpet replacement and removal of fountains and wall water features. So concurrent to this, you'll see the picture on the right. The carpeting area at the end of the pool has definitely met its useful life. And I propose to take out those fountains and fill it in with concrete and put in rubberized flooring, very similar to the Kuntz outdoor pool that maybe you've been able to attend and walk on. So this space will create a multi-purpose use space. You can recreate there, exercise, lounge around. And I believe that the wall and decor look in the new lighting, it'll be a big improvement for the Kuntz or the Beardsley pool area. Palm Ridge indoor pool wainscot tile replacement, $50,000. If you've ever been inside the Palm Ridge area, you'll see that the old tile along the walls, approximately 4 foot off the ground, is in ill repair. The tile can't be matched any longer. And it is, again, a project that was requested by the Properties Committee to look into and request. So for $50,000, we remove and replace all the existing tile wainscot and replace with new tile. It includes 1,740 square foot of new wonderboard, the red guarding for the moisture purposes, and the new tile. I believe next is the R.H. Johnson Environmental Services Maintenance Office. Todd Patty manages a couple of departments, his golf course maintenance department and then the environmental maintenance department that takes care of all of the landscaping areas around our rec centers. These group of people meet in this makeshift shed every single day, and it's just right outside this building at the loading docks. This building is no longer repairable, it leaks and has rodent issues. This would correct unfit conditions and provide a supervisor's, a 2-desk office space, a staff break room, and employee lockers. The original space was 480 square foot, and the new space design is 560 square foot, approximately 20 by 28. You'll see here on this next slide is where I propose to place this addition if approved. It would simply take up the same area that the Connex storage containers that are out there now sit at and be built off of the existing loading dock. The next slide shows a floor plan, preliminary floor plan of what that layout would look like. Basically a 10-person break room area with 2 supervisor's desk area. This provides the staff also very accessible entrance to our bathrooms and does not require us to have to add bathrooms to a new building addition. That is the extent of all the capital requests for this season, and I thank you for your time and hope you enjoyed the projects.
Thank you, Karl. Next up is Peter Finelli, our CFO, and he's going to walk through a lot of the numbers with you. Hopefully you can all see those from where you're sitting, but if not, this is all going to be available on YouTube or online for you to, if you want to play with numbers and or come in and meet with us or whatnot. But this is definitely available at your convenience to use on your own computer. If you have any further questions, please let us know. Mr. Finelli.
Good evening, everybody. The finance part, everybody's gripping part of it. Hey, first of all, I think we all know that the base year, our fiscal year 2021 that we're currently in right now, has been littered with a lot of impacts because of COVID, and so many times the budget variances have some odd percentages or organic amounts. So I'm going to try and highlight some of those. So there are three components to any income statement. There's the revenues, there's an expenses, and then there's a capital related component. I thought we'd take a few minutes to drive through, and as Bill references, I know these are small, so I've color coded it a little bit to identify what some of the impacts are. The first one I'd like to identify is what I call the blue sections up there. This is basically that we saw impacts within our revenue streams, but they weren't to zero. They were severely impacted. A lot of people don't know that we generate quite a bit of revenue off of our guest fees, tenant cards. The bowling was reduced to 40% of the normal run rate. And quite a bit of net revenue comes out of our golf operations for both merchandise and food and beverage. So, excuse me, that those areas up there in blue should be recovering in the post-COVID era, hopefully, with some pretty considerable organic and percentage growth. The second one is what I call the green. This is where essentially these three quadrants, hall rentals, tours, and concerts for our special events, those all virtually went into shutdown. And you can kind of see in the projected column, they're very nominal amounts, and we're hoping to generate recovery of those 2 or 3 quadrants. And the last one is what Bill referenced earlier. It's something we certainly don't hope for, but we're projecting a decline from the golf that are at all-time high. Well, I shouldn't say that. Those numbers back in the day were higher, but our run rate for number of rounds played over the last 4 years, pre-COVID, we're about in the 280,000 range. We're on a run rate right now to finish off the current year we're in to be in the 310 to 320,000 range. As Bill referenced, we certainly hope that that sustains at that level, but with all the openings of the other activities, perhaps people will disengage from golf and go back. So to be a little bit conservative, we went to about a 290,000 run rate for our budget for the upcoming year. Our expenses is the next component of our income statement, and as Bill referenced, by far our most important component is our salaries. We will maintain the mandatory increases for our minimum wage employees. Right now we're projecting that to be about 2.25, and that is 100% tied to the consumer price index that's published by the federal government. But our biggest impact up there is health insurance. We do broker this out, but the impacts, as we've seen for some claims history, as well as across the nation with some of the COVID-related expenditures, these are very, very common increased percentages, sadly. The next quadrant is what we call all other, ranges from operating all the way down to employee-related and anywhere in between. And so Bill referenced earlier that we took a strong look at this and challenged our managers, but you won't see it in any one quadrant to reduce our expenses by 3%. It's battered all over the place. And so I just wanted to highlight some of the, first of all, I wanted to highlight that that 3% is baked into there. But there are some expenditures which, if you attend any of the governing board meetings, you'll hear that they granted me the authority to put it into the budget, and now Bill is presenting it. That includes in our equipment budget $30,000 for our Arts Commission, newly formed Arts Commission, to have an allowance. It doesn't mean they're going to spend it, but they have an allowance for any kind of expenditures that they present to the governing board. Also down in increase in our legal and professional. I think this is a wise expenditure, but we'll be transacting a consultant to assist with the master planning. It's hoped that they will, in conjunction with our own internal staff and assessments of our operations, in addition to this consulting, we will develop by early part of fiscal or calendar year 2022 a master plan that will provide guidance. And for that, we are budgeting $150,000. On a positive, you'll see the green. Our repair and maintenance does have non-capitalizable expenditures that can be pretty sizable whenever we seal and stripe some of our parking lots. They can be $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. As we sit here today, there are no materials seal and stripes planned for the upcoming year, so we will benefit from that. Sadly, one of the last other items is our property and casualty. I'll be presenting a public presentation on this if you're interested anymore at our upcoming Budget and Finance Committee this next Tuesday. But due to hurricanes, fires, social verdicts that are, used to be $1 million for a jury to award for a injury or death. Now those are into the tens of millions sometimes. And so that is manifesting itself into a premium that's about 20%. And this is despite that we have actually no claims loss on our own actuarial data over the last year. Moving to the capital-related component of the income statement, as you can see, we highlighted that we'll be requesting a $200 increase in the base amount. We are on a pace for about 1,389 transactions in the current year. We are going to be very conservative to a 1,200 run rate. That's, as Bill referenced in one of his earlier slides, that's been the norm. Higher interest rates are starting to pop up with the 10-year note going up recently. Home prices and limited inventories could eventually put drags upon the current run rate. And our investment income, you may or may not be aware, we had our reserve funds invested in a 60% bond and a 40% equity portfolio leading up to early part of November, and the governing board authorized that to be moved to a 90% bonds and 10% equity. So we never budget ever for any valuation changes. That's where you see some of the investment income that's been a nice tailwind. But a year ago, we saw in just 1 month's time, the reserves moved from 23 million down to 19, a 4 million drop in less than a month. And so these investments will be in much more risk-averse assets going forward. The yield is still expected to be about 1.5. And one negative is that our investment advisor right now is Vanguard. That rate that they had was initiated in 2015, and recently they advised us that they could no longer keep that grandfathered rate. And so as of July 1, we are facing about a doubling of our investment fee. Currently, we are taking a peek at an investment advisor through our request for proposal types consultation with the governing board, or excuse me, Ann Brown, the treasurer of our governing board, and Mr. Schwind. And we're hoping to make some options on that presented to them soon. So real briefly, you saw all three quadrants, the revenues, operating, and the capital related. In our operating margin, then we'll, in the middle, right smack in the middle, you'll see that's about $1,451,000, a slight decline from the prior year, but when you factor in the master plan and the arts are in there, essentially it's about neutral. Those funds are very critical for investment into our reserve funds, and by policy, that $1,500,000 is funded into there. And I just remind everybody that most HOAs will have a component of their dues to fund repair and replacement of common areas and parks and benches and children's equipment, things like that. We have it just on a broader scale. So about $1,500,000 divided by 30,000 or so members is about $50 on average. And you take 50 into that $500 that each owner member pays, that's 10%. And most HOAs that I'm aware of, when I review the literature, is usually in the 15 to 20% range. So I think you're getting very good value for that. Moving over to the capital summary, I know this is a busy slide. The aggregate, only thing that Todd and Karl presented was the over $50,000 items. There are dozens, if not close to 100 other items that are below that threshold. So our aggregate amount is about $5,684,000 entering into the year. And you can see there are some years in the future 5-year run rate that are elevated, either with a component of irrigation projects, or other years are actually going to be much lower than the current year. And so we baked all the assumptions, and you can see in the very middle is just an extrapolation of the budget you've been seeing. And on very broad dimensions, we forward project out. I would highlight your eye, I know you can't really see it, but at the current run rate that we are projecting, we believe that a 2.8% increase in the dues is about the highest we would hope to have to need in the current environment. And I know this is somewhat hard to read as well, but a very, very important an acronym that we reference a lot for how well positioned we are for our replacement and repair and replacement needs of this community. And the fully funded balance basically takes 1,200 or so line items that we have within our reserve study. And each of the reserve study aggregates how much it will take to replace at preordained times, whether that's 1 year out or 30 years out. And each value of that says, I need to have in the bank to replace that, how much right now? And right now that runs about $50 million. And our current balance is in the $28 million range. So that denominator, that numerator over that denominator creates a percentage. In the industry, to be 30 or 40 or 50% funded is considered very well positioned. Our governing board last year said we would like to have no less than 40%. And I think you can see over our 5-year trend line, and taking all the inflows that I mentioned earlier from reserve, our APFs and operating, as well as our capital outflows and new capital expectations, we should be in a well-positioned place even as much as 5 years out. Now, real quick, these are easy because our rate sheets are published. And when you don't have any increases, I don't have anything to talk about. So it's a good thing. Real briefly up in the right, a little bit on cart rentals from 14 to 16 and $3 to $4 on the pull carts. No effect in our bowling, and just the APF down there on our membership and our hall rental rates and things like that, and our disclosure fees and stuff like that. I wanted to just briefly mention how, full-time equivalents is what FTE standpoint. We have about 500 people on the payroll. 150 or so of those are full-time. The rest, 275 to 300 are part-timers. You can see that our in fiscal year 1920 and the 3 years preceding that, we were in the 310 range. Last year with closures and some of the items that Bill referenced where vacancies were not filled, we believe we acted accordingly and offset some of the revenue declines within our cost structure. It is our intention to go to a 310 run rate, but every time we fill a position, we evaluate the need. So that's what I have. So, thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Well, that concludes our portion of the presentation. So the microphone is now yours. If there's any questions or comments that you'd like to ask us, we have plenty of staff here that we can certainly attempt to get your questions answered. Any and all? Anything we can do for you? Sir, if you could, your name and your account number, please.
John Plum, 119838. We have an address, but I know on the news, Las Vegas is looking at eliminating grass areas in their city. We have a lot of associations that have grass, uses a lot of water. Are we looking forward to reducing our water use by changing some of this effort?
Yes, sir, we are. And I'm going to have Todd Patty come up and talk a little bit about where we're going in that direction. When it comes to water conservation in the state of Arizona, obviously water is gold. And so there is something out there now with the Arizona Department of Water Resources called what's an active management area. And we fall under all of the guidelines for the active management area for Phoenix, not the city of Phoenix, but they just call it Phoenix. So it's the metro area. And so, yes, there are rules and regulations that are in place. There are rules and regulations that are being amended as we speak. And up until, Todd was down there last week, I believe, getting as much information as he possibly could on where we're going. But new figures are coming out that are mandated that'll start taking place in the year 2023, as well as 2025. I'm going to have Todd talk a little bit about where we're going in that direction.
Yeah, I think I saw the same news article that you saw about Las Vegas and eliminating all their grass. And they talked about that was in the city and it was non-functional grass, just grass that you look at. It didn't have any purpose at all. So I think they're doing the right thing by doing that. You know that the project that I was talking about that we're looking at doing, the shoreline project, I look at that as a water conservation project, you know, shoring up those and preventing the seepage or at least reducing the seepage on those lakes. And we've had good success on the lakes that we've done so far. And there's a number of things that we do on the golf courses to conserve water. You know, water management, we do the shoreline projects, we upgrade our irrigation systems. Like we're going to do at Grandview, that's a little bit bigger than what we've done in the past. But there's a number of things that we do every day to conserve water. And Bill mentioned that the Department of Water Resources, they are putting some restrictions on our water allotments that we have. Right now we're in the third management plan. They have a fourth management plan that's coming out in 2023. And that's going to reduce our water allotment by just a little bit. Right now they're giving us about 4.9 acre feet of water per acre irrigated turf. They're going to cut that back to 4.75. So that's a little bit of a reduction. The one in 2025 is the bigger one. Originally, they were going to mandate that we could only irrigate, I believe it was 85 to 90 acres of turf. So that means on our larger golf courses, we'd have to take turf out, which we're planning on doing anyway. But we're not having to take that much out. So it looks like our water allotment in 2025 is going to be reduced by about 100 acre feet. And that's for all 7 golf courses. So that's pretty easy to manage. I did some calculations on a calculator that the state provided. You plug in the numbers, how many acres you have, irrigated turf, your surface acres on your lakes, and the year that the golf course was built, and it comes up with a total allotment. And so we're looking at probably reducing or cutting back on the first 4 golf courses, our wall-to-wall turf golf courses. We're going to cut back about 70 acres of turf when it's all said and done. Hopefully we can get to that before 2025 or shortly after, and that will keep us in compliance with the state. So we got some work to do, but I think we're headed in the right direction. And like I said, we've been conserving water on the golf courses for years. We're always trying to find ways to save water and cut back a little bit, whether even the overseeding. We've reduced the overseeding that we do on the golf courses. We used to overseed a large area around the greens and the tees. We've cut back on that. We've tightened up our fairways a little bit, and we don't overseed our par threes. So I think we've done a lot of good work on water conservation over the years on the golf courses, and we're going to continue that.
That's good on the golf courses, but the question is the rest of the city. I look at all the HOAs, is the community going to address that with those people? It's still water usage that the city, we pump all this water out and distribute it.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's a couple of areas that we have to draw a line. The Recreation Centers of Sun City West is an organization or the association that we oversee. And when it comes to the golf watering that Todd's dealing with, that's groundwater. And so we have rights with the state of Arizona to be able to draw that out of the ground. When it comes to irrigation of residential homes and property, right, that's EPCOR, and that's a commercial operation. We have within the walls of Sun City West over 103 different HOAs. So there are very different rules associated with each of those, and we as the rec center do not have any control over those. So that's an individual scenario that the HOAs are going to have to deal with the Arizona Department of Water Resources and the state of Arizona when it comes to any kind of water conservation coming down the road. So it's really somewhat out of our hands. We manage what we manage, and have to abide by all state rules when it comes to groundwater and the like. But the other type of water that we use, whether it's to irrigate, one of our parks or some of the landscaping around here, basically is drinking water, and that's what we'd have to abide by. And we don't have any control over that one. Anybody else? Sir? Name and number, if you could, please.
First of all, thank you for doing this. This is great. My name is Michael Trainer, 125170. And my question is simple. When we get the Rec News newspaper, it's full of financial information. And could you recommend 3 things we should focus on those 2 pages or so of the financial information that are most indicative of our financial health?
Pete, you want to take a shot at that, or Katie?
Well, at the end of the day, probably the number one focus. Well, first of all, let me step way back. While the Rec Center News does present the income statement, what you may not be aware of is that we have monthly a full-scale presentation of our financial situation and any in-depth questions that may percolate from what it's called the Budget and Finance Committee. They meet by schedule twice a month. Oftentimes it's truncated to once. Next Tuesday will be that opportunity. In those meetings, we dive deep into the components that answer to your question that I think are the most critical, and that's the reserve funds and the percentage of our expected repair and replacement needs, and any questions that percolate about the reserve study that provides the amount we think we're going to need, as well as new capital, funding. I get probably more questions about that than anything. And so we spend quite a bit of time. The 3 gentlemen over here, we have quite regular meetings and for our components of the reserve study, and there are three main ones in each item. That's the current cost, so that has to be evaluated to make sure we're staying. What's their expected replacement date? And then how much of that is the remaining useful life? And those need to be accurate, and we found some level of underfunding 2 or 3 years ago when I arrived. And it wasn't just me, it was folks over there and a new set of eyes. And so we have to be cognizant of what's inflation going to impact into those items that are 5, 2, 10 years out. And then how did those reserve funds, how are they managed? And that's what I brought up on the slide earlier about we evaluated and presented to the board and got their approval that while bonds and fixed investments do have their, fixed income investments do have their deficits, they are more stable than, generally speaking, the equities. And so we were not feeling that we wanted to have every year be this yo-yo on our reserve funds. And so we stabilized it, and in so doing, we now have a predictable future. And we found that the yield on that slide of 1.5% didn't need to be 5, 6. You don't need to be chasing 5, 6% to meet your needs at the current rate. And that's why I would say it's very critical from my chair, more than anything else, would be how are we staying the course on those repair and replacement? Because I don't know if you're new or not, but last year's budget cycle, 5.9 million was ultimately approved, and COVID was the big driver, but those decline in our reserve funds of $4 million made us feel like, well, what do we need to commit to the governing board to show that we're reacting to the potential negative outcome of this virus? And so we deferred almost $2 million. I think most of the people in the room here would say, when you pay your dues, when you pay your 3,500 APF, the biggest thing you expect is that when the normal cycle of replacement of amenities to keep this high ranking at a very reasonable price, that the monies are going to be there. And we feel like we're accomplishing that.
Prior to March of last year, Pete had dark hair. But I do want to say, I know as Pete mentioned it a couple of times, we have recovered from that $4 million loss. That has come back. We are in very good shape, and we are all very, very grateful for that. But our B&F committee, as well as our staff, have got together with the governing board and have made some adjustments in how we invest our money. And it's a little more safer as we speak here today. But back to your question, sir, as far as that goes, we do have our association operates on a pretty seasonal basis, right? A lot of folks go away in the summertime. But again, we have a lot of costs in the summertime. That's when Todd really ramps up a lot of golf course maintenance. So we have a lot of expenses going out in July, and then our revenues don't pick up again until the winterish fall seasons and that kind of thing. So if I were to look at when I look at financial reports, my main concern is the comparables. Looking back a couple of years compared to our monthly income and our monthly expenses. And if we're deviating greatly from that, that is a concern. So those are the things that I would focus on. Don't be shy. You're here for a reason. Okay. If you have any other comments or concerns, President George Kuchek's here. His office hours, if you want to ever come in, contact him or just sit down and meet. Monday, 9 to 11. He and I meet every Monday as well to kind of go over anything that the governing board has issue with, and I give him an update on our weekly staff reports. So again, contact us anytime, schedule to come in and meet if any other questions arise, and we'll be happy to serve. Thank you for coming.